Hi there. Right, finally, the microphone wasn't working, so I kept looking like an idiot. Not that anybody's watching these things yet, but anyway, there's a bit of essentially this time. I haven't done a video for a while, so I'm just going to do like a bit of organic research and more or less show you what that process looks like. What that means is I haven't prepared anything for this, but I thought I'd do a quick video of maybe 15 minutes long to have a look at what's going on with the strikes and so on and so forth. So, yeah, let's get to it. Sorry, I've just had got off a bit of a chest infection. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks of like constant cold. It's been horrible. Anyway, so this is the economic calendar over the next few weeks. Basically, if you look down the side here, you've got dates, we've got some times. The red ones, they're important. The bold ones are slightly important, and the other ones are just data points, really. Just to remind, consensus means this is like a broad range of economic forecasts. So many economists do that. This forecast is Trading Economics, their own forecast. So really you're looking for divergence there to see, well, actually is what's... well, I look at divergence there in terms of, well, something surprising might happen. So one thing that does seem to be, there seems to be a difference here between... So this is GfK consumer confidence. It's basically just consumer confidence in Germany. This will be the January stats. This is out tomorrow at 7 a.m. The previous figure was minus 40, which is low, obviously. You want it to be 0 is like neutral. So that's Trading Economics are forecasting it to be a lot more positive than general economic consensus. So that's a potentially interesting data point. I said I did no research for this, didn't I? But I did have a quick look through the calendar. There doesn't seem to be much, although, we're expecting personal income and spending and all the rest to be still in positive territory in the States, which is obviously good news. And then let's scroll down a bit further to the end of the month, and there's nothing, massive. House prices up 4.4% month on month, down a little bit. So that's an interesting factoid. But anyway, let's have a look at one of the things I said I was going to talk about was inflation. Like, is it a global thing or not? So let's have the full table, and then if we click on inflation rate. No, it could be in Zimbabwe, who have their bank base rate set at 200, and the rate of inflation is 255%. That's a very interesting, tactic. Now, Turkey's an interesting point in case because their interest rate was high relative to the rest of the world. It's actually relatively low considering its inflation rate. Turkey, Erdogan has decided to... his theory is that essentially inflation isn't really being caused by consumer spending. Therefore, there's no need to put up the inflation rate, and that will come back down over time. So we'll put that in a separate tab and have a look at that in a second. You'll notice these countries aren't developed. Let's put it that way. There's a lot of work for them to do in terms of economic development. You've got some European countries there, like Lithuania and Latvia. The Ukraine obviously has pretty high inflation for pretty obvious reasons. Quite a lot of war happens in these countries as well, or civil unrest or whatever. It's only really when you come down to Poland, but again, Poland's massively impacted by Russian gas supplies and so on and so forth, as is Romania and Bulgaria. So these are all understandably very high inflation rates. Where's the UK? Here we go, 10.7. So we're around Belgium, Mozambique, Sweden have high, but again they have quite a big gas supply from Russia, whereas our energy mix, I think Russian gas makes up like 4% of it or something. So that's got relatively little impact. Germany again, Russian gas. I suppose France might be a better comparator in terms of where we should be. The United States is, I think that 7.1's coming down, which is obviously good news. There's France. Let's have a look at that. And Spain's probably a bit too far away from Russia. I don't think they've got any Russian gas, but again, we've almost got no Russian gas, so that's not bad. Oh, there they are, 6.8. So Turkey, is inflation coming down? Well, I mean, it's come down from October to November, so, maybe that experiment's working there. US rate of inflation is down from 9 to 7%, so theirs is coming back down nicely. If we go over 5 years, this is where it should be, sort of in between 2 to 4, and it seems to be heading back down in that direction, which is nice to see. So the American economy is sorting itself out. France's inflation rate seems to be hovering around peak, but its peak was only 6.1 to begin with, so I suppose, again, it should be around about the 2% mark, so it's hovering around about the 6. So their situation isn't improving, so that's interesting. You look at Spain, let's have a look. So where should it be? It should be around here, 0 to 2%, that sort of thing. It peaked at like 10.5%, a bit like the UK. In fact, let's get the UK. Where are we? 10 point something, aren't we? So we're going to be up here, 10.7. There we go. Let's put that in another tab. So if we go 5 years, so ours should be again hovering around about the 2% mark. So we've peaked at. We've only just peaked. Spain peaked a while ago. It seems to be coming down. So our rate of inflation doesn't seem to be coming down. We seem to be hovering the same as France, but ours is about 4% higher. Now, a lot of people would say that 4% is Brexit. I don't know. I've read some research that suggests it is. I've not read any research that really makes up that 4% gap. France is a good comparator, though. So that's that. So that's that. So inflation, is it happening across the world? Yes. Is it improving across the world? Well, no, not always. So I don't think, in terms of the economy, inflation's necessarily that bad in this country compared to the rest of the world. Obviously, it's very bad in comparison to historic. And look, in Finland, it's still going up, but again, theirs hasn't hit 10% yet. We've yeah. What about Ireland? Ireland will be interesting, actually, because Ireland's a very comparable economy, but they're basically the same as the UK, but they're in the EU. So theirs is peaked and hovering, but a little bit less than ours. So maybe the 2% is because of Brexit. I don't know. But Brexit's obviously going to have an impact on Ireland as well. So, maybe. Well, we don't know, really, do we? So that's that question of what's happening with inflation. FT, wrong one. What are we going to look at? Sorry, my head is absolutely full of virus at the moment. Strikes. Actually, Twitter might be a better source of this. I do like Twitter, actually. Not just because, in fact, I don't like Elon Musk at all. I think he's an idiot. He's just a lucky idiot. What's James O'Brien saying? So one power, the ones who least deserve it. Very funny. There's all this stuff with Jeremy Clarkson going on, obviously. Liz Truss is trending. Why? The cost of 30... mini budget trace suspected cocaine found after parties. Yep. Well, I mean, I think in a few years' time, this might sound a bit conspiracy theorist, but it will turn out that this entire cabinet are total cokeheads, and they're just like shooting up the Downing Street, because they keep finding cocaine everywhere. Like, it's been found in toilets in 10 Downing Street. It doesn't bode well if people feel that emboldened to use Class A's in the heart of government, really, does it? Not coke anyway. I mean, that just makes you aggressive and idiotic, I have to say, I'm not sure that I've ever done coke. I've done other things, but I don't think I've done coke. Qualitative is just blue. Yeah, well done. But there's nothing about strikes, really, is there? That's interesting. I need to talk to them. Really? There's nothing about strike actions? How bizarre. Something about Merry Turfmas, which is a horrible term to describe feminists who are against trans people. Yeah, there's just not a lot on, really, is there? I mean, we've got this nurses' strikes, and where's that Gantt chart? UK strike. Maybe it'll be on the BBC somewhere. Here we go. Yeah, that's what we're talking. I'm sure that was what we're talking about this morning. Because the health minister, the health secretary's been like paraded around the studios this morning to do some coverage. So basically what the UK government do, or what the Tory party in government do, is they send one minister round to the media round every morning, and that minister basically gets assaulted verbally by all the media outlets for what the government's doing wrong this day. And what they tend to do is rotate ministers around. So today we'll be talking about strikes, and then they'll send another minister around to talk about something else tomorrow. And it's this rotating cavalcade of chaos and incompetence that essentially they keep presenting to the media. The problem is it's like fresh meat to the media every day, and the media can't stick on one thing and actually ask the right questions. Like, if you have a look around YouTube, there are loads of interviews where union bosses are getting assaulted verbally by journalists, and some would say rightly so, and their position is being challenged in extremis. However, you do not see the same level of scrutiny applied to the bosses of the companies that are the other side of the dispute. So one side of the dispute is being 100% transparent, and the other side of the dispute is hiding behind lawyers and feeding lines to the media to ask to try and need all these union bosses, which there's something fundamentally corrupt about how the media and the companies are behaving in this set of disputes. Who is striking when? Here we go. So we've got driving examiners, they're striking. I mean, they're quite important because, we've all needed one at one point. So today's the 20th. Who have we got today? We've got nurses again today. Again, both of these nurses strikes could have easily been avoided. And this is that I just don't, like, politically, this just feeds into my assumption that the UK economy is not going anywhere next year, because the government must want this to happen. Like, all of this is fairly easily avoidable. I mean, the rail thing is just basically give them the pay rise and let's not have ticketless service. That's an easy agreement to come to. Royal Mail, that dispute seems to be about essentially what Royal Mail want to do is do a P&O, and they've decided to consult the unions about it rather than just do it. So what they want to do is essentially employ people to not do daily delivery, for starters. So they're going to break that universal delivery commitment thing. They're not going to do daily delivery across the UK, which I think, that's what we pay them for. So there's a whole load of like service and other related bits in with the Royal Mail strike. It's not actually really about pay. Nor is the rail contract really. I mean, yes, there's a pay element to it, but I mean, it's not really about that. It's more about the fact they don't want to lose their jobs. Nurses, it is on the face of it about pay, but the reality is the reason these strikes are happening is because the NHS have just been totally shafted over the last few years, and they've seen so much corruption and stupid contracts coming out, that I think it's almost like an enough is enough sort of moment. We've got ambulance workers tomorrow, which is terrifying actually. Like nurses is really bad. Ambulance workers, I mean, I don't know. England and Wales only, ambulance workers. Buses, we've had those. Highway workers, we've got some over the Christmas period, so there's no highway works going to happen between 21st and the 25th, which means if there's a pothole on your road, which means that your road has to be closed, meaning your family can't get to see you this winter, well, I don't know what the highway workers' dispute's about. I'd imagine it's pay and conditions like everything else. Driving examiners seem to be pretty much solidly striking over winter. Teachers have already done theirs, and baggage handlers. So it's just, I don't know why the government aren't doing anything. It's just absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. And they must want it. This is the thing. They must want it because all of these things are easily solvable by telling a minister to go and do a deal. Do you know what I mean? It's not, if you're running say you're running a massive company and that company is called UK PLC, you've got a problem with one of your subsidiaries, the Royal Mail subsidiary or the transport subsidiary, right? And you've got all of your contractors or your subcontractors are striking because of the action of one of your contractors, right? You get involved, you do a deal, it's all done. They want 6% more pay for contracts in future. Okay, fine, whatever. We want them to do the work, so we're going to pay. Let's start off at 4 and try and narrow that gap and save a bit of money. And they don't want to have to wear yellow, they want to provide a full service, they don't want to cut corners. And we're like, no, we don't want you to cut corners either. So, obviously we need to work on that modernisation package together. So I just really don't understand. The government must want it. This goes back to what I said about COVID and about other things over this year. If something's happening and it looks stupid, and the government has to want that to happen, right? Because they can just fix it. The government, despite the mick being taken out of various politicians, the government does actually have a magic money tree called quantitative easing and government debt. The government can just magic money, a lot of money, out of thin air very, very quickly if they need to. And, they've chosen not to. It's a political choice. Now, obviously, you don't want to do that. If you can avoid it, you don't want to create a load of government debt because that's a debt on future generations. But if needs must. If you need to stop your NHS from collapsing, then you find some money, right? I mean, that's what they did in COVID. So why they've suddenly decided that they don't care about the NHS collapsing now, when they did care about the NHS collapsing throughout the COVID, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So that must be something they're choosing to do. So why are they choosing to collapse the NHS now when they could have done it 2 years ago? Is it that actually Johnson didn't want the NHS to collapse? Like, he might have actually valued it, whereas Sunak wants it to collapse so he can privatise it? Like, I don't know what's going on, but whatever's going on is not what the media is reporting, basically. It just doesn't make any sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then something else is going on that will make sense. I love that line from, Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, which is, if you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. I love that line. So it's impossible that the government don't want these strikes to happen, right? There is no Arthur Scargill here. It's not like the 80s, right, where the strikes were caused by a militant and out-of-touch union baron who was being confronted by the government, Margaret Thatcher, at the time who was also ideologically opposed to settlement. It's not like you've got two people who cannot see eye to eye, like ideologically cannot. There is no. You draw a Venn diagram of their interests, and there is no overlap. Like that was something that was never, ever, ever going to be resolved. However, in this case, there seem to be rational, reasonable parties on both sides, and yet it's not being resolved. So it is impossible that it's an 80s. It's because it's an 80s style ideological militant. Or you get all these words thrown around, but those are not true because, well, they're not true. I mean, they're patently not true. Everybody wants to do a deal, so why isn't one being done? Because somebody's choosing not to do them. Like there wasn't very nearly a rail deal the other day, wasn't there? And then at the last minute, the government snuck something onto the table. They said, all right, as part of the settlement, we want this, and they snuck something onto the table that the unions cannot accept. So they want it to continue. Basically, the pay was there. They got the financial settlement was done. The job security settlement was done, and then the government asked them to introduce the concept of ticketless inspection or whatever, as part of new franchise deals or something. And that's a basic safety thing. The reason that we introduced all this was because we had quite a few crashes in the 90s where hundreds of people died because of poor safety on the lines, because we were moving to an unsafe model, and the railways are now the railway workers are now striking because they don't want to go back to that, because that was horrendous. Like, nobody wants to be picking bodies out of a field at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning because the government's decided they can't be bothered with railway safety. We don't want to go back to that, and that will happen again if we reduce the amount of safety on the lines. So anyway, there's a lot going on. I think I've covered off everything I wanted to do, and just out of interest, the new little chat studio is going on to the right here. We just need a couple of chairs. My plans for that actually are quite simple. We're gonna do a bit of a slight rebranding. We're gonna rebrand a bit of the channel to be How to Get Rich Slowly, and we're going to be doing like one-to-one interviews with people about various important subjects. So how to arrange a mortgage. I'll get a mortgage broker in to come and talk about that whole process, and hopefully that'll be of use to everybody and pretty helpful. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.